Well, I'm a ruthless youngster, blowing up churches, snatching purses, laying down verses. It's no mercy, cause my rhymes is mental. When I write, blood comes out of my pencil. Lord have mercy to those that curse me. You ain't worthy enough to serve me no pity. Down in the unders where I dwell, raw as hell, got you under my spell. You got caught in the rain. Not talking about the weather, kid, but the lead. Buck, you're dead. WB represent. Leaving the scene without thought to repent. Forget spent. I'm never spending time in jail. Yo, a cell was another fucking form of hell.
The Youngsters, Taj Mahal Goodman, Curon Cue Ball Goodman, and Tariq Reek G's Dawson, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, active since 1991. Today's feature is a rap group that had legendary pedigree, timing, opportunity, and most importantly, talent back in the 90s when it came to young rap prodigies making a name for themselves in hip-hop, along with Kris Kross, Another Bad Creation, and Illegal. All early 90s teeny bop rap groups that came out around that time and made the pubescent rap one of the popular trends, seeing as this was the first time hip-hop had seen multiple kid groups blow up in their own right. The Youngsters had the advantage growing up practically hip-hop, stemming from their father Lawrence Goodman, producer and founder of the label Pop Art that worked with artists like Cool C and Steady B, Roxanne Shante, KRS-One, and even Will Smith. Since early, the Youngsters were in the mix and couldn't ask for a better foundation than the one they got. They released their debut single, Pass the Mic, in '92, bringing a more street side to the kiddie bop pool, where groups like ABC and Kris Kross focused more on radio hits and catchy singles they could market to the world as the next trend. I've always felt kid groups and prodigies always have the chance to be hit or miss because so much factors go into whether that group or artist makes it or not. First off, youth is always coveted in all walks of life. To have youth and experience rolled into one is rare and nearly unheard of. That's why when you see kids so advanced in their development and able to imitate the grown-ups, it's always at least a sight to see. So many young artists and groups naturally have an appeal to them, but what happens as the years go by? Are they forgotten and less interesting because at their new age, what they do is no longer that impressive? Precisely. Then, as that transition is happening, they all attempt to put out more grown, appealing music, and that's where the ground becomes even more shaky. Now, will your young crowd from before still relate to your older music that's now new to them and basically a totally new artist? Will the older crowd that they now target see them as more than the kids they used to dress, act, and sound like, and respect them the same, knowing 90% of the things they rapped about when it was cute to see kids act far past their age was probably just a figment of someone else's imagination, seeing as those lyrics are obviously ghostwritten and contrived to fit the era. In this case, screwed up faces, baldies, sunglasses, and rapper hands and feet. The Youngsters are the perfect example of how that path plays out and how difficult it is to succeed in that space and transition into something that works when the shock of kids being grown wears off. If nothing else, they had as great a chance as any to blow up into the best kiddie rap prodigies of the 90s, but for these reasons, their growth was stunted. Let's talk about it. Salute to K-Romance once again for this request. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music. I should get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. The Youngsters were an early 90s rap group that were destined to become rappers. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Taj and Curon Goodman are brothers and sons of Pop Art founders Ann and Lawrence Goodman, though they didn't grow up under the same roof. One day, Cue Ball's father has his music partners over and asks him to say a part on their song they imagined a kid saying. He did, and lo and behold, it came out better than expected. Lawrence then asked him to say an entire verse, and that too was dope. The plan was made then and there to groom Curon as a rapper. Lawrence calls Taj to the mic and the same happens. They were all blown away at the knack these 12, 13-year-olds had at the time for the mic. Their dad decides to push them as a group and add their cousin Tariq to the mix, and the Youngsters were formed. Goodman wanted to move immediately on the group to take advantage of their youth as the clock ticked on their appeal. They quickly signed to Atlantic Records and released their debut album and top rap single, Pass the Mic. From there, it was on. Stunt number 1, Kris Kross's Mass Appeal. When Pass the Mic dropped, along with their debut album March 10th of '92, the Youngsters had a monopoly on kiddie bop rap, seeing as another bad creation weren't in the same hard rap vein, even though they were hip-hop. That's until Kris Kross came out with their single Jump, and it blew up overnight as not just a cool kiddie bop track, but was catchy enough for anyone to enjoy and simple enough to follow along. I mean, jump, jump were the only steps to enjoying Kris Kross, even though they had much more in their arsenal. They had an image as well, with the baggy clothes turned backwards as a gimmick to create character and something unique, and it worked in a time gimmick in hip-hop was still fairly new. With Jermaine Dupri in prime form penning their lyrics, Kris Kross came with hit after hit on that first album. Jump, Warm It Up, It's a Shame, I Missed the Bus. Kris Kross were the group talked about at the time, as that album went on to go 4 times platinum. What's worse is it was released a few weeks after the Youngsters' debut, completely overshadowing them and swallowing up kiddie rap fans with their marketability and versatility, while the Youngsters attempted to continue thriving in the more hardcore hip-hop sound influenced by Naughty by Nature and Onyx. Problem there is, 1, it's hard to promote hardcore rap to parents that have to eventually go to a record store at the time and buy the album in the vein of destruction, violence, and anti-system for their child, when you have other options like Kris Kross that made kiddie rap a little more palatable. The Youngsters were impressive and had a spark, but Kris Kross were it. They had mass appeal and a machine in Jermaine Dupri behind them, who's a legend for turning young talent into superstars. Stunt number 2, the hit clock is ticking. Another issue with the Youngsters were they didn't really make mass appeal hit records to put them over the top of other acts that did at the time. Kris Kross had 4 hits on their debut album that either went gold or platinum. The Youngsters had 1 song that made top 10, but on the rap charts, not the Billboard 100 or some other publication making noise at the time. It's like their songs were cool, seeing as it was, and I hate to use the word again, but cute to see a basically mini Naughty by Nature / Onyx making these advanced songs, but they weren't exactly churning out hits that could be promoted globally. Even the track Pass the Mic, Cue Ball has a line on there where he says money growing like grass with the mass appeal, became much more legendary than the song, seeing as DJ Premier would sample that for YOUNGSTA'S single Mass Appeal off their '94 Hard to Earn album. Nas would also use it to brand his ventures, and it all started from the Youngsters. I'm sure you've heard or seen Nas's promotion of Mass Appeal. I'm sure you know YOUNGSTA'S Mass Appeal is classic, but most were today years old when they realized a rapper called Cue Ball was the inspiration. The Youngsters released an album every year after their debut, but as they became older and lost that youthful appeal, their music was now falling into just another rap group category. Add to that, they weren't making charting hits as time crept up on them, losing a piece of the young market on every drop. Their second album, The Aftermath, dropped in '93 and produced no charting singles, just underground hits which weren't enough to create new buzz as they got older. Stunt number 3, time to split. After 4 albums, none cracking the top 100 or even top 20 in hip-hop and R&B, it was clear the Youngsters had ran their course as far as potential to become stars. If they hadn't by then, they probably never will, was the thought of Atlantic Records, who dropped them after their 3rd try at making something stick. The trio went back to Pop Art, their father's label, as independent artists, and without the machine, they did even worse on the charts and failed to produce anything memorable from their fourth album, if you aren't a listener of underground music. But more than their industry issues, Tariq had a child and requested he fall back from the group, as brother Taj and Cue Ball too fell back in their own way. Quran began producing full-time and fell back from rap, along with Taj, who both seemed to have had enough of the grind it takes for child stars to transition. The music stopped after 1995's independent release, after no singles made noise or created enough buzz to keep them together. They were supposed to release another album called Icons in '97, but it never officially came out, although a leak of it did. All in all, the Youngsters were an okay hip-hop group that are considered legends in Philly and underground hip-hop for being one of the first to do what they did, but as mentioned, also an example of how difficult it is to transition into adult fame when so many liked you for being youthful and full of potential. Their music was cool, lot of jazz feet, ghost-written bars, and rapper hands, but it served its purpose and gave them their start. But for these reasons, their growth was stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.